Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is Heidi Spies from NOCTI, and I'm joined by Dr. John Foster, and we thought we would take some time this morning to give you some information about NOCTI and an overview of what we have been up to over the past while. And so we're planning to talk about some updates from the listening session that was held this summer at the PACTA conference, some information about the customized test development that's been ongoing in your state, also information about security and the various roles and responsibilities. We have some slides included that talk about the NOCTI score reports, and then finally teacher resources. We have everyone muted at this point due to the large group, and we're trying to move through the slides fairly quickly so we don't take too much of your time. However, we are going to have some time for questions at the end of the presentation, and also you can type your questions in the comment box if you'd like, and that way Penn State can capture all questions, so if we don't have time to answer everything, we'll at least have them captured and can respond via email to the group. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Foster.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I get to do the fun stuff, so I shouldn't say that. You know, there's an awful lot of fun stuff going on at NOCTI, and you guys have been working with NOCTI and with Heidi for quite a while, and we certainly appreciate that. I just want to take a few minutes to review some of the things that we talked about this summer at the PACTA meeting in our listening session, and some of them I have detailed slides on, and others we're just going to kind of give you an idea of where we are to date, sort of thing. So looking at the current slide, some of them may be new to some of you. As you probably know, we've been trying to reach out as best we can to a number of different certification partners. We know that the best thing for a student is to give them as much bang for the buck out of one assessment as we possibly can. So in addition to giving them, college credit, in addition to giving them, a solid gradient score report that they can use with employers, we also try to combine an industry certification as much as possible whenever we can. So this year we've formed an alliance with the American Medical Certification Association. It's our first medical certification that we've tied to, and we're starting out with one of about 7 different certifications. So we expect that to grow. AMCA, for those of you who don't know them, kind of does certification work in the space that's about 18 years of age to pre-2-year degree. So they do things like phlebotomy certifications and surgical assistant techs and things like that. ASE is a relatively new partner with us, and for those of you who've actually done some ordering or who may be in charge of ordering at your particular institution, you've probably noticed that you can order the ASE certification exam through our site. That's kind of a quick fix in terms of our collaboration with ASE, but our hope is over the next year or two that we'll work with them to develop a performance test, and that'll be incorporated into the ASE certification piece, at least for Pennsylvania. And there's a couple of other things that'll be happening too. Reports from them, possibility of pre-test work. There's a number of other opportunities for collaboration with ASE. But if you don't mind going to the next slide, please.
Okay.
The next slide talks about...
it's being slow.
Oops.
Hang on. Huh. There we go.
Hey, sorry about that. Anyway, one of the things we talked about at the listening session was digital badges, or as Mozilla calls them now, digital open badges. And for those of you who don't know much about open badges, there is a YouTube video. I'm not going to take the time to click through right now, but if you get the chance, at your sites and you go to YouTube, and you just type in, once you're on the YouTube site, what is a digital badge, and look for the YouTube video that's produced by the Chicago Art Association. That's the one that you see the icon on the screen. It's about a 2.5, 3-minute video, and it really gives you a good solid description of digital open badges. But as the slide says, you know, it's being referred to as a new standard to recognize and verify learning, and it was really, you know, if you look at the YouTube video, it's really uniquely designed. Digital badges are uniquely designed and positioned to really help the career and technical education community, because what they do is they give us the ability to verify and capture competence that a student has, and you know, depending on how they're rolled out, they can be built upon one another. For example, you could have a certification badge on sanitation. It would build to another badge, and they could lead to industrial credential badges. They could lead to college credit badges. There's all kinds of options. And if you want to do a little bit of research on your own, if you just Google, you know, digital badges or open digital badges, you'll find tons of information out there. I guess in the higher ed sphere, the one that you'll find the most information on right now is Purdue. Purdue has a system that they're calling Passport, and essentially what it does is it captures skills of college-age students that are not captured on a typical typical transcript. Things like, you know, helped out at the Habitat for Humanity, served in a blood bank, kind of extracurricular activities. They're awarding badges for those. But the beauty is that these badges are verifiable. And so when someone, you know, kind of hovers over a digital badge icon, they see the metadata that's behind it, and they get instant verification that this information is real. So it's a little bit more, it's a little bit harder to fake, I guess, than a resume. You know, anybody can write anything on a resume, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. With the digital badge, you have a number of different ways to verify the information by providing websites, contact information, all sorts of things. So I'm not really going to get into the detail of that right now, but if you could go to the next slide. I know it's being slow.
It is.
I will come back to the digital badges when I talk about college credit. Thank you. Here's something that's kind of interesting. We had a couple of folks request banners. So the banner you can see is being held by the students in the middle of the slide there. It says proud to be a NOCTI testing site. We've gone ahead and we've started to produce these things through a subcontractor. We're making these 4x8 vinyl banners so that you can hang them indoors or outdoors. I just wanted you to know that this was not an idea that we kind of thought of ourselves. This was something that was actually brought to us by a group of folks in Maine, and we've started to market these. But if your school is interested in these, please kind of let us know. A lot of states across the country are proud to be involved with NOCTI and proud of what the information that's produced from NOCTI, what it does for students, what it does for instructional improvement, all those good things that can come from a technical competency exam. So they're out there. I'm not sure exactly if they're on our order list right now. I think they are, but Heidi would know that for sure. Next slide. Hey, it moved faster that time. What the heck? If you haven't heard, this is our second year of work with the National College Credit Recommendation Service. They are the same as ACE, the American Council on Education, and essentially what they do is they evaluate standards, curriculum, and assessments for approval for college credit. Last year, we had about 30 tests or so approved for college credit. This year, we're actually up to 55. And among those 55 are about 3, I believe, that are customized Pennsylvania assessments. And basically the way it works is if your student scores at a 70% range on just the written test, on any of those 55 assessments. And that link is on our website, so you can go to that link and see what those 55 assessments are. That student will get a note that indicates that they've hit that threshold and they're eligible for a college credit recommendation. That college credit recommendation is good at over 1,500 universities and colleges nationwide. I think the last time I looked, there were about 40 or 50 in Pennsylvania alone. That's essentially the way it works. Now, there are some wrinkles. We do know that some of you don't like your students to know that they scored at a 70%, so we have kind of a workaround available for that. Those are some of the things that we talked about at the listening session. And I also wanted to go back just for a second to the digital badge concept, because it ties pretty directly to this National College Credit Recommendation process that we engaged ourselves in. We thought we'd really like to try to implement a digital badge for students, just to see how the process would work in an educational environment, see what the what the wrinkles would be, what kind of awareness work we have to do with guidance counselors, what kind of awareness work with students, with teachers and things like that. So we asked a number of our state partners to provide some schools for us to work on digital badging. And by the way, this spring we have what we're calling our badge beta test occurring in 4 states at 14 schools across those 4 states with about 3,100 students in those 4 states. The 4 states are Pennsylvania, Virginia, Minnesota, and California. And essentially what we'll be doing is awarding a digital badge for any student who makes that 70% threshold and is eligible for a college credit. So essentially what will happen is when that student, if they're in this badge beta test, they will not only get the college credit recommendation, they will also get a digital icon of a digital badge, and that badge will have verification information behind it about the National College Credit Recommendation Service, about NOCTI, about expiration dates. There's about 35 categories that Mozilla requires of a digital badge, and that information will be able to be viewed by anyone who views that badge, and that badge is actually controlled by the students. Once it is earned, it becomes an electronic piece of property of that student, so it's completely up to the student as to where to post that badge. They could post it on something called a Mozilla backpack. They could post it on monster.com. They could post it on their Facebook site. They could put it on an electronic resume. They could put it almost any place they want to. And as you can see on the slide there, there's also official college transcripts information available through Excelsior College. Now there is an additional charge for that, but that opportunity is available as well. So if you'd like your student to actually, when they apply to a college, instead of going in with a recommendation report signed by us and the National College Credit Recommendation Service, if you'd actually like them to go in with a transcripted document from another college, you can do that through Excelsior. So, next slide. This next slide, though it's not up yet, talks about employer recognition and employer ties. We heard from a number of different sources that folks in industry just aren't aware of NOCTI and just don't recognize it. Basically, what we wanted to try to do is we wanted to try to give you a piece of document, a piece of information, a resource really, that you could share with your OAC members, you could share with performance evaluators, your local industry types, that explains the connection between schools, employers, and NOCTI. If we were able to flip that page over that you're looking at right there, there's all kinds of information on it about here's how NOCTI connects to students, here's how it connects to schools, here's how it connects to employers, here's why it's important, and things like that. But we do feel that it's really important, that actually the teacher themselves or the classroom and the school itself promotes NOCTI. If OAC members and if local industries see a value in the gradient data that's reported from NOCTI, if they see that the school sees that information is important, then they'll find it important as well. That's the way we believe it. We know of schools in the state of Pennsylvania that actually have worked out arrangements with their OACs that when a student comes to a particular industry to to apply for a job, they have to provide their NOCTI reports. And this is a really great step. So next slide, Heidi. Oh, I mentioned this one already, so I won't spend a lot of time here. It just kind of elaborates the things that I mentioned in the first slide, our agreement with AMCA and our agreement with ASE. By the way, I'll be at the instructors meeting out at Las Vegas at ACTE. I believe it occurs Wednesday from 1 to 4 for auto mechanics instructors. So if any of you are sending your auto mechanics or your collision or I think your diesel instructors out to ACTE for the ASE meeting, I'll be there to help them kick off that meeting and talk a little bit more about the partnership between ASE and NOCTI. So your instructors are likely to come back with additional information on that one. And I think that kind of wraps it up for me. I'll be staying around to listen to the conversation at the tail end of this meeting. So please continue to ask questions, and if you have any for me in particular, I'd be happy to try to field them once or less. Heidi, back to you.
Thanks very much. So as John mentioned, he got to talk about all of the fun things, and now I'm going to talk about the nuts and bolts, which we also have some good things to report as well. First up, I wanted to talk a little bit about the ongoing development work that's happening in Pennsylvania. We are continuing to work with your state to develop customized assessments that are based on your POS task list. Obviously, we're including subject matter experts from your schools, people that are teaching in those various programs of study. And currently, there are several titles available. You can see the list here. You can also find this list along with test blueprints on the Pennsylvania page of NOCTI's website. So right from our main homepage, there is a link for states, and you'll find a Pennsylvania page that provides a lot of information that's specific to your state. So it would encourage you to make sure that all of your teachers are aware of the customized assessment blueprints and where to find them. Some development workshops that were recently completed. We developed 2 assessments in July, Applied Horticulture and Sales, Distribution, and Marketing. There was a Career Education and Work Academic Standards assessment developed in September, and then most recently, Computer Technology was developed. And so all of these tests will be available for pilot testing this coming spring. And again, we'll have information posted on our website, and we'll also be sending communication out to the site coordinators, and Penn State Greater Allegheny will be communicating with you as well. Some of the tests that have been developed over the past couple of years are still in pilot testing phase. And you can see the list here. There are several, 7 to be exact, that we were not able to release this fall for use because of the low pilot test numbers. So it's critical that we have enough pilot test takers so that we can do all of the item analysis and bias review and the other steps that we need to take to finish that assessment, ensuring that it's a legally reliable, valid assessment before we release it for use. So a couple of these titles have been in pilot test phase for 2 years now. They will continue in pilot testing for this upcoming spring. So if you have any of these programs and any of these areas, we would encourage you to consider participating in pilot testing. Some quick security do's and don'ts. We don't want to be the security police, but it is important. And so what I tried to do is collect some questions that come up usually from the site coordinator trainings that we host every year or from customer communication. and just a few here that we want to touch on. I put all the do's at the top. So obviously, I'm sure most of you are aware that you need to select third-party individuals to serve as your performance evaluators. And in many cases, those are your advisory committee members or local business and industry. It's important that the site coordinators at your schools are training the proctors and evaluators prior to testing. We have materials available to assist with that. And I do talk about that during the site coordinator training. It's coming up actually next week on Tuesday, so we'll have more information for your site coordinators next week. You want to ensure that teachers who are helping proctor online tests are proctoring students in unrelated programs. So they should not be proctoring online tests for their students or any student in a similar program. So as an example, someone would not want to be proctoring accounting if they teach accounting, or proctoring, as an example, business information processing, since it's in that same business realm. However, your accounting teacher could proctor for your carpentry students. So just ensure that that's taking place, and also ensure that your proctors closely monitor participants during testing. We've had some interesting scenarios come up. We had one situation where a student was caught actually taking pictures with their cell phone of questions as they popped up on the screen. So important that the proctors are moving around the room and closely monitoring students. We would also encourage you to incorporate a checkout, check-in process. And again, this is something that we'll be providing additional information to your site coordinators next week. But basically, we have a process outlined and the forms that you would need to have so that when your proctors and evaluators come on test day to pick up materials, there's a process in place that is secure where they are checking out materials from a central location, they're signing for those materials, and they're being checked back in after testing. Someone's counting them with the proctor evaluator to make sure that everything that was checked out was checked back in. So on to some don'ts, and these are some questions that we've had. You would want to refrain from selecting people such as relatives, recent graduates, or recent retirees as performance evaluators. And basically, when selecting performance evaluators, just make sure that those evaluators selected would not raise any red flags for anyone, so that the integrity of your testing program is being protected. So it's just important to have unbiased, third-party evaluators, and making sure that the connections that they may or may not have with the program are removed a bit. You want to make sure, as I mentioned before, that your teachers are not proctoring online tests for their kids or similar programs. You want to make sure that NOCTI testing materials are not being copied. If something comes up, and every once in a while it does, where you need an extra evaluator guide or something crops up, you need to make sure that your site coordinators are calling and talking with us so that we can work that out together. We need to make sure that materials are not being copied at the schools. And also, one other important component, and again, we'll be talking about this in greater detail with your site coordinators next week, would be who is the appropriate person to be helping enter performance ratings. So after performance testing is completed, the ratings that the evaluators gave to the students have to be entered into the online system. And so right along with security of test materials would be security of those ratings, and so obviously you would not want to have a teacher assisting with that process. Some online systems, do's and don'ts, just real quickly. Make sure that your teachers are not provided with, I'm starting with a don't. Sorry, let's start with the positives. You want to make sure, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, that your teachers are provided with login credentials to teacher resources. And I'll explain what that is, but basically it's a password protected site of the NOCTI website that teachers can access for a lot of resources. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. You also want to make sure that your site coordinators are aware, and again we'll talk about this next week, that teachers, while they cannot proctor their students during the online test, they can certainly proctor the online sample questions that we provide as part of the study guide packages. So anytime study guides are purchased for your programs, they also come with user codes and passwords that allow the students to log into the online testing system and run through the sample questions in the system, which is really nice for the students. And because those questions are not actual test questions, the teachers are allowed to proctor that, which gives them an opportunity to see what the online testing system looks like and how the questions are formatted. Also need to make sure that your site coordinators are providing teachers with instructor prep packs. The prep packs provide a lot of information about performance testing specifically, list of materials, information about setting up the lab or shop before testing. So it's important that teachers have those instructor prep packs available to them. Just a couple of don'ts, and you've probably already read them on the screen, but making sure that the systems are kept secure. So access to the Client Services Center, which is the online management site for your site coordinators, is kept secure, that teachers are not accessing that site. Right along with the checkout, check-in process that I mentioned would be making sure that your teachers are not delivering those test materials to proctors and evaluators. You need to make sure that you know, when test proctors and evaluators are coming to you for the materials on test date, that they're handed directly to them and that the teachers, again, don't have access to those materials. And then obviously making sure that you don't provide online test user codes to teachers. Real quickly with score reports, making sure that once testing is completed, teachers have all of the available score reports for their students. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute. We do offer, just so you're aware, the option of both PDF or Excel formats for exporting score reports. So it's certainly you can provide that option to your teachers. Do they want a PDF export or an Excel or both? And then again, obviously not providing online test user codes to teachers. This is the security checkout check-in form that I had mentioned. So basically what you can do is have a central location, probably an office or where the site coordinator is located, where proctors and evaluators come along with an office staff, just verifying that everything going out and coming back in matches. I mentioned the Pennsylvania page of NOCTI's website. So again, just want to make you aware of that. Want to make sure that your teachers are aware of this page. I do run into teachers occasionally that are not aware that we do have a Pennsylvania page on our website. So if you can help get the word out, that would be great. Wanted to mention, and this really isn't going to impact testing at all other than providing some enhancements to the online testing system. We released a new version this past June, just made some improvements with interfacing. Also, we can support mobile devices now, you know, iPads, that kind of thing, and also there are additional browsers that are supported. You can see Firefox, Chrome, and IE10. There's a capability for participants to email preliminary scores. So if your school allows students to see their scores as soon as they're done testing, they can be printed, but they can also email them. So if they want to email them off to their personal email address so they have a copy of their score report, that capability is available. And we've streamlined the computer setup process a bit, which was pretty easy to begin with, so we've just made it a little bit better. You can see this is a screenshot of the actual testing site. Over to the far right, there is a Try the Testing System button, and what this allows is anyone accessing the testing site can walk through a series of practice questions just to kind of see how the navigation works, how the questions are formatted, that kind of thing. We've also made some improvements to performance rating entry, which we'll be discussing with the site coordinators next week. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on accommodations, other than to say the guidebook that is put out by Penn State Greater Allegheny is either done or close to being done, and there is quite a large section on accommodations that will be available at their website, and so I would encourage you to review that. But basically, work with your disability coordinator to determine what, if any, accommodations for testing are needed following all of the information that's outlined in the guidebook. And I'm sure most of you are aware these accommodations have been around through the online testing system for a while. Accommodations such as text-to-speech, which is the ability for students to mouse over a question and have that be enlarged, and also to actually have the question and the possible answers read to them right through the system. So we also have the ability to extend time and then multiple session delivery. Several schools that we've talked with are administering the multiple choice portion of the test in one session. And so what that means is those tests have a 3-hour administration time, so 1 3-hour session, which is quite long for students. A multiple session delivery is available, and that allows you to break the test into 2 90-minute sessions or 3 60-minute sessions, which allows you to test across 2 or 3 days. Sometimes that fits better with class schedules and program schedules, and also really helps to assist with test fatigue, sitting in front of a computer for 3 hours answering questions. So I would encourage you to explore that option if you are not already having your test delivered in a multiple session. Just some quick roles and responsibilities. Obviously, the director and the district role is to select and assure that you have a qualified site coordinator following all of the guidelines outlined in the NOCTI security policy. Also making sure that your teachers are provided with all available resources, making sure that everyone who is involved in your testing program, whether it be your teachers, your OAC committee members, other staff members, are aware of our NOCTI security policies, and also that any violations are reported to NOCTI and PDE for discussion and follow-up. Your site coordinators are responsible with making sure also that your teachers have the available resources, and in many cases providing those resources to them. They also place orders and confirm test dates, working with the teachers to determine the test dates, or working with you to determine the test dates. And then maintaining security and overseeing test administration. And so making sure that those things that I've mentioned, such as the checkout, check-in process, are in place, and that they are available on the day of testing, monitoring things to make sure that security is being maintained and making sure that it's a smooth testing experience for everybody. They should also be assisting with selection and then training the proctors and evaluators so that those individuals are comfortable and confident in what they're going to be doing on the day of testing. And then obviously distributing score reports and maintaining records once testing is completed. And they have a big job, hence my picture in the corner. They're juggling a lot. I talk to them pretty frequently, and so always encourage them to call the office or call me with any questions or concerns or things that they need. So your teachers should be using the test blueprint to crosswalk with their program. They obviously assist students with test preparation, possibly incorporating study guides if your school does use study guides. They also work with site coordinators on logistics, things such as selecting the evaluators, perhaps when the days of testing are going to be, who they may have in their class that could need an accommodation, those kinds of things. And then, as I mentioned, they should be provided with all of the score report data so that they have that to use for program improvement. Specifically, their role with regard to performance testing, and we get asked this quite a bit, so we talk about it pretty extensively at the site coordinator training. As I mentioned, they need to have access to the prep packs well in advance of testing so that they have plenty of time to procure all the materials that are needed, think about how they're going to set up the testing space. In many cases, they're assisting with evaluator selection. Now, that doesn't mean that if they select evaluators whom they think would be qualified, you still want to make sure that your site coordinator or someone else in administration is involved in that process to ensure that the evaluators selected really are the best candidates for the job. And then obviously I mentioned they take care of procuring all the equipment, materials, and supplies, and then making sure that the testing area is set up prior to testing and that all of the equipment is in good working order. One other note about performance testing before I move on to score reports. While teachers cannot assist in performance testing and they can't view the students as they're completing the jobs or observe performance testing in any way, we do know that for liability reasons, in most cases, you have to have a staff member available. And so we do have some language that we share with the site coordinators. It's also in the teacher's corner of our website that talks about while teachers can't observe or be involved with the process, they should be accessible. And so they should be accessible to deal with things like, breaker trips, or the evaluator needs some additional material and where is that, or any emergencies that might come up in the classroom. So want you to be aware of that. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Moving on to score reports quickly. Probably most of you are aware of the score reports, but I just wanted to take a minute to run through them. For all tests that are administered, you receive a group score report. And so the group score report provides you a list of all of the students that took the assessment. Obviously, their total score is provided, but then you have a breakdown by the duties of the test, so the main categories of the assessment. So in automotive, as an example, you would have a score for brakes, and so on. So each of those main duty categories. You also receive an analysis of score report so that you can see how many students were in the particular test group that year and what the average was of their scores. We also track a site cumulative average for you, and then a state and a nation average. And so you've always have some comparative data that can be used when you're reviewing the score reports and trying to figure out where the students fell in that particular school year. There are also individual score reports that are available for all students, and they can be provided to the students. Again, you can see that they provide those duty scores and then a total score. These also include pre-test scores if the student pre-tested, and a percentage of change between their pre and their post-test. So nice information to provide to the students or their parents or guardians. TaskLink reports have been around for a while. A couple of years ago, they were a report that you could purchase, but we've since, a couple of years ago, made them part of the standard scoring package, and so they are free. They're included in all tests, both NOCTI tests and the Pennsylvania Customized Assessments, and they're available at the Client Services Center for your site coordinators to export and provide to teachers. They provide data down into the particular tasks of the test. So as an example, we have a sample up here, but for a particular task, you would be able to see that there were 5 questions linked to that task, and of those 5 questions, what was the average correct number for that particular test group? And so they really provide instructors with a way to drill down one more level to determine where students might be struggling. So maybe it looks like students are struggling in brakes, but what does that mean specifically? You know, what task within brakes are the students having trouble with, and what tasks are they doing quite well with? So if your site coordinators have not provided those reports to teachers, I would encourage you to have them do so. They can even provide last year's post-test. So if the teachers are interested to see what their TaskLink reports from last spring look like, those are available to the site coordinators at the Client Services Center. In the spring, after the benchmarks have been finalized and they are posted, we have a tool for site coordinators to pull PSC reports. And there are 2 types. The main PSC report, which you see on the screen here, exported to Excel, allows you to have all of the students listed along with their pre-test scores, their written and performance test scores, and the PSC level that they reached at both of those tests individually, along with their overall PSC level. So a lot of good information in these reports. You can actually export all test titles in one report to Excel, and you can see that format here where everything is in one file and you have a separate tab for each of the different tests that were administered. So a lot of data that can be pulled down and exported into one file for you. And then we also have available, similar to the individual report that I showed you for students, there is an individual PSC report for students that shows all of the information from the NOCTI standard individual report plus the overall PSC level that they achieved. So those are available typically beginning in April. We leave that tool on through the end of September so that if people come back into the new school year and for whatever reason need another copy of their PSC report, those are available. But those are not archived because your benchmarks change every year. Those reports are not archived, so it's important that your site coordinators save those reports to your local system each year. And just a quick overview of some of the resources that are available to teachers. I mentioned the Teachers Corner of NOCTI's website. We're posting more information out there all of the time, so there are a lot of resources, answers to some common questions, some score report information, and just a variety of tools for teachers that are available for them anytime they need. I mentioned teacher resources, and teacher resources is a password-protected site for teachers of schools that test with NOCTI. And so your site coordinator can provide your teachers with the login credentials. They're available to them, and it's the same credential for all of the teachers at your school. And that the Teacher Resources Center provides a lot of information for your teachers that would be helpful. Things such as the instructor prep packs that I mentioned. Previously, before we created this teacher resources section, it was the responsibility of the site coordinator to download prep packs for all tests being given and then get those to the teacher. Now, if teachers are able to log into the teacher resources section of the website, they can access their instructor prep pack as needed. There is also information about performance evaluators that they can share with potential evaluators that they're trying to recruit, or their OAC committee if there's interest. Just gives a general overview of what the evaluator responsibilities would be. There are also ideas out there and a PowerPoint for using study guides in the classroom. So just ways that teachers can incorporate those study guides, ideas for activities that they can do with the study guides. And then there are other helpful reference pieces, such as a letter to parents template. If the teachers send information home prior to testing, we have a template out there for them. There's also a score interpretation guide that they can access to learn more about what that scoring data that's provided on their reports is all about, and just several other resources that are available to them and should be useful. I left the study guide slide in here, and I've already mentioned this, but I left it in as a reminder to myself to make sure to reiterate to you that teachers can proctor those online sample questions. So just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that if you use study guides at your school. And now we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions, if you could type them in the chat feature, we'll take just a few minutes and try to get some of those answered. And then, as I mentioned, Penn State Greater Allegheny will be capturing everything that's typed in, and then we'll be following up with you to make sure that we have all of your questions answered. So if anyone would like to start typing, feel free. Lori, is there anything that you need to add from your end?
No, Heidi, I think you covered everything that we had talked about on the topics.
Great. I'm not seeing any questions. Do we want to try, Lori, unmuting everybody to see how that works? It's a big group, but if we take turns, maybe we can get a few questions answered.
Right, we certainly can, and if there are some individual
muted.
Okay. Okay, it looks like the floor's open for anybody who has a question for Heidi.
They only looking for instincts.
I see a question in the chat bar. Does the site coordinator attend the training if they attended last year? Yes, the site coordinator should plan on attending. All the new information for this year's testing will be given. It does say that budgets are tight, and we are providing travel reimbursement for everyone attending.
Yeah, travel reimbursement. So you're gonna end up sending in your 400 miles.
Oh, you?
It seems like we're getting a lot of feedback
Yeah.
from unmuting everybody. So I'm going to ask Heidi to go ahead and mute everybody again. Look at the chat box for questions. Mm-hmm. Heidi, we have a question about a social studies teacher proctoring a carpentry exam. Can you address that? It seems that we have lost Heidi's audio. We'll give her a couple seconds to see if she comes back to us.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. I was saying that in the situation of the social studies teacher proctoring the online test for carpentry students, as long as that teacher is not affiliated with that program, that would be appropriate. So again, teachers who are not proctoring their own students or students in a similar CTE program could definitely assist with online testing proctoring. Do you see any other questions, Lori?
Go ahead, ask it. Oh, you can't.
I believe the plan, someone asked if this PowerPoint will be available on the website, and I believe the plan is to make this available to you. So
That is correct. We'll have a recording of this webinar on the website along with the PowerPoint slides so that you can print them off for future use.
someone also asked if the prep pack is the same as the blueprint, and no. The assessment blueprint is provided to anyone from NOCTI's website, and that provides an overview of the duties and tasks that are covered on the multiple choice test, along with an overview of the jobs for the performance test. The prep pack goes into more detail. It provides all of the tools and materials and equipment that will be needed for performance testing, information about how the workstations should be set up, and so those are two different resource documents. Both are needed by your teachers.
Heidi, I have a question about an instructor from a private post-secondary school. Are they able to evaluate the performance test?
Again, anytime you would be considering a teacher from a post-secondary school, I would just fall back on the question is having this person serve as an evaluator, would that in any way affect the integrity of our overall testing program? And in a lot of cases, as an example, I know there are some private cosmetology schools that are post-secondary. And so those individuals, maybe a teacher from the cosmetology school is a member of the advisory committee, and so they would be an appropriate evaluator, someone from post-secondary. But again, just making sure that you're always asking that question about, is this person in any way going to affect the overall integrity of our program? And if not, that could be a possible option.
And can substitute teachers proctor the written online portion?
You could hire substitute teachers to proctor the written portion. Again, I would say if that substitute teacher teaches a lot or is involved quite a bit in a particular CTE program, you would just want to make sure that they're not proctoring for that program. So if you had someone, as an example, that subs quite a bit or helps out quite a bit, even if they're not subbing officially with your carpentry program, if you wanted to use them as a proctor, you would want to make sure that they proctor a test other than the carpentry test, and probably something right out of the building trades realm.
Okay. I have a question. Can a teacher from another secondary technical school proctor the performance exam for another school? For this? No.
Yeah.
No.
If you look at the security policy, it clearly states that teachers from other programs in the secondary schools should not be evaluating, obviously, at their school or at another school. So you would not want to trade teachers across schools to evaluate your performance test. That would be a security situation.
Great. Can you go over one more time how the teachers receive the username and passwords to log on to the teacher resources section?
Sure. Those are provided to them by the site coordinator. So the site coordinator has access to their Client Services Center, which is the online management site that site coordinators use for everything: ordering, retrieving score reports, accessing all of the resources. And so at the Client Services Center, we have posted the login credentials for teacher resources. So site coordinators just need to basically email those login credentials out to the teachers so that they can access that section of our website.
Okay. Thanks, Heidi. I don't see any more questions coming in, and I don't see anybody typing. But certainly if a question comes up after the webinar, you can email Heidi or I to get an answer on those. That's no problem. And a lot of questions can be answered by just visiting either NOCTI's website or our website at careertechpa.org.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you taking the opportunity to let us share some information with you this morning. And as Lori mentioned, we're always available, so please feel free to call or email questions you might have. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.